All right, today we're doing something a little different. Think of this as a practical workshop. We're going to tap into some incredibly deep, ancient wisdom to help us tackle a very, very modern problem: self-regulation. This is all about learning how to win the war that's happening within. So let me just kick this off with a question for you. I want you to really think about this. What if your biggest opponent, the thing that really holds you back, wasn't another person, wasn't some external obstacle, but was actually a force, a pattern, operating right inside your own head?
And look, this isn't some new age idea we just came up with. For literally thousands of years, some of the sharpest minds in history have been completely obsessed with this. They've created these incredibly detailed maps of our inner battlefield, identifying who the combatants are and what the rules of engagement are. And that is our goal today. We are going to unpack their secrets. We're going to learn a framework to achieve what they called inner governance, giving you the actual tools you need to not just fight, but to win that war within. Okay, so first things first. Before we jump in, let's get the lay of the land and really understand the landscape of this internal battlefield.
The classical term for this from Sanskrit is Arshadvarga. Now, it sounds complicated, but it breaks down really simply. Ari means enemy, Shad is six, and Varga is group. So literally, the collective of six enemies. And here's the most important part. The whole idea rests on the fact that these enemies aren't out there. They're in here. They are psychological forces that just erode our clarity and our judgment from the inside out.
All right, it's time for a proper introduction. Let's meet these 6 inner enemies, shall we? So here they are, our field guide to the enemy. First, we have kama. That's that intense craving, the kind that yanks you away from what really matters. Then there's krodha, that white-hot rage that makes it impossible to think clearly. After that, lobha, or greed, which is a recipe for being chronically dissatisfied no matter what you get. Then we have moha, a kind of delusion that literally stops you from seeing reality for what it is. Then there's mada, that's pride and arrogance, the kind that isolates you from the feedback you desperately need. And finally, matsarya, the quiet poison of envy and jealousy that makes you resent other people's success. You have to understand, these aren't just moods, they are predictable psychological patterns.
And this brings us to what might be the most critical part of our whole workshop. You see, these enemies, they don't act randomly. They work together in a terrifyingly predictable sequence. This is what's known as the ladder of destruction.
I want you to think about a time you've seen someone really capable, maybe even yourself, just spiral into self-destructive behavior. It never happens in one big explosion, does it? It's a process, and it almost always begins with something that seems completely harmless.
And this quote, straight from the Bhagavad Gita, just nails the starting point. It all begins when the mind simply starts to dwell repeatedly on something it wants. A passing thought becomes a recurring obsession. That, right there, is the first rung of the ladder.
And if it's left unchecked, that simple, innocent act of just thinking about something, well, it cascades, step by step, until it ends in total ruin. So let's look at exactly how this happens. Okay, this slide right here is the core diagnostic tool of our workshop. This is the predictable path from a simple thought to complete disaster. So let's walk through it. It starts with number 1, contemplation. You're just dwelling on something. That constant dwelling then deepens into number 2, attachment. Now the object feels necessary for your happiness. From there, it intensifies into number 3, desire, or kama. This is a full-blown craving. And what happens when that craving gets blocked? We get to step 4, anger, or krodha. And that sustained anger leads directly to delusion. We literally can't see straight. This causes a loss of memory, not of facts, but of our own core values and past lessons. With our values gone, we see the destruction of our intellect. Our ability to tell right from wrong just fails. And the final step? Total collapse, ruin. This is a chain reaction, and knowing how it works is the absolute key to breaking it. Now, I know that sounds incredibly bleak, but the map of the disease is also the map of the cure. So let's shift from diagnosis to action and open up our self-regulation toolkit. And here is the truly empowering part of all this. Because this ladder is such a predictable sequence, it shows us exactly where we can intervene. You don't have to wait for total collapse. You can interrupt the pattern at any step. And, the earlier, the better. So, tool number 1, pratipaksha, bhavana. It basically means cultivating the opposite thought. So when a destructive thought appears, you consciously and deliberately introduce its constructive counterpart. As you see here, when a thought of envy pops up, you pivot to thinking about what you can learn. When anger flares up, you actively introduce a thought of patience or compassion. This isn't about suppressing the feeling, it's about active mental redirection. It's like changing the channel in your brain. Our second tool is Nishkama Bhava, and this one is incredibly powerful. It's the practice of engaging fully in your work, doing your absolute best, but releasing your white-knuckled grip on the specific outcome. It is not about not caring. It's about freeing yourself from all the anxiety and suffering that comes from demanding that reality bend to your will. And the third tool is structural. It's called Vritasam Yoga, which really just means associating with wise counsel. And the source material is so direct about this. Having a mentor isn't a luxury. It is a governance mechanism. Why? Because our inner enemies, especially pride, they thrive in isolation. Having trusted mentors who can give you honest feedback is a structural defense against your own blind spots. So, what's the ultimate goal of all this inner work? I mean, where does this path of self-regulation actually lead? The ideal state described in these texts is the Rajarshi. It translates to something like a saintly sovereign. But don't get hung up on the words. This isn't some religious figure. It's a person who has so thoroughly integrated their inner world that their outer actions are effective, clear, and guided by wisdom, not by compulsion. And this really gets to the heart of the matter. True power isn't about external control, how many people you manage or how much money you have. The most powerful person is the one who has achieved genuine self-mastery. That inner order is the non-negotiable prerequisite for any sustainable outer success. So we'll end our workshop there. You've been introduced to the 6 inner enemies, you've seen the predictable ladder they use to create ruin, and you've been given a toolkit to intervene. So the only question left is the one you see right here. Which battle will you fight first?